Alright, hello and welcome back to Top Flight Talk. It's been a while, but I thought I'd kick things off with a good friend of mine and a face that you probably all know, and maybe we'll know a little bit better at the end of this. This is, of course, Trei, or Zer0, you may know him as. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for kind of coming on and being here with me. I do appreciate it, of course.
I enjoy your company, Bryce. What can I say? You asked me to come on late night. I was chilling in bed late night. I'm here.
I appreciate that. I did say, I said, you know, is it okay? You know, I kind of want to do this. You're like, yeah, I'll do it now. I'm like, are you sure you want to do it now? I'm like, yeah, awesome. Let's get it then. All right, so let's start at the beginning. It seems like a logical place to start. You kind of came up rather quickly, in my opinion. For me at least. You appeared out of nowhere. I'm sure there are other pros who've played with you before, but it was what, Shane and Swanee who kind of gave you that step up into the spotlight. First of all, how did that come around? Was that kind of a big culture shift for you? It's probably you know, old hat nowadays, but back then for me it was quite significant.
I still remember it like it was yesterday. To be fair, yeah, it kind of happened fairly quick. I think I remember looking back at like a what is it, like a esportspedia page about myself, like seeing what teams I was on. I think like all of us done it, like see how many teams we've been on. I think it took me like 3 amateur teams before I was on Epsilon with Swanee and Shane.
Yeah,
and
well,
then
it was Epsilon with Swanee and Shane, two of the most prominent figures. Like, was that kind of mind blowing? Like, I mean, for me, it was just like, I didn't know who you were. I thought you'd be gone. For those first days, I had no idea who you were.
I don't know. It was like, because I used to play like on PlayStation. It was never like competitive on there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I thought I was good enough to come over and play. And then, yeah, I got picked up by Shane and Swanee. Shout out to them, obviously. I got help from like a couple of other people as well, like putting in a good word for me and stuff like that. And yeah, just come up from there, really.
All right, well, I think it's a good place to move on. Now, again, we're talking about the Shane and Swanee situation, right? It wasn't the greatest of intros, in my opinion. Like, you did okay. You didn't in Epsilon. You didn't set the world on fire. You just didn't. Which, to be honest with you, surprised a lot of us when you then went into. I believe it was then after Epsilon, wasn't it? It was pretty much that move into working with Marky B and working with Urban. Which really was a different choice. Because I said, when you were in Epsilon, you were the new guy, and even when you were the new guy, it wasn't the greatest of debuts. It was, you know, you did okay, you didn't set anything on fire. What come next, though, was the Infuse saga. It was over a year, I think you were with those guys?
Yeah, I think it was a duration from, like, the end of AW to the end of Black Ops 3. I think that's when we teamed, like, the whole duration. Yeah, like, our Epsi team, obviously, like, team with Shane and Swan, it was good. We team with Reedy as well. He left us in a pretty shitty situation, and we went to that Gfinity League and just went to the Gfinity League and went like, oh, we just got raped. Like, we lost to the Spanish. I got ripped by a few pros for a couple months for that as well. But yeah, it was just being a new guy really coming in. How the Infuse squad came along. It's kind of a rough one, really. I had a couple team choices, like, of different sort of players. Mark was always, like, the base player. Just because it's Mark, like, it's like the same with Tommy. You want to be with, like, a captain like that. I was supposed to team with me, Dave, I think it was LXT, and myself, and Ben. So us four were going to go to Worlds. Then we found out we didn't have enough pro points and stuff like that. So it all based off like pro points and stuff like that. And then it ended up being me, Mark, Pete, and Dave for a whole year.
Okay, well, yeah, it was one of those things, and it was a big question because it's where you kind of people started really noticing you. Like, you become a fan favorite for a lot of people. You and Bats obviously came out that year, and now you're teaming with him. But yeah, how was the transition then from going from relatively being unknown to, in a year with this one team with Infused, you are probably one of the forefront names on every fan's lips. Like, everybody in Europe, especially any fan of European players, You were one of those top players they were a fan of. Was there any kind of a culture shock for you that suddenly you've gone from amateur status to arguably pro status in one of the most kind of reputed teams in Europe in the space of a year?
I mean, I guess. I mean, I didn't really like see it like that at the time. It was just like I was just there doing my job essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I grew with how big like esports grew in a way.
Yeah.
Like for Call of Duty, obviously with more people tuning in and stuff like that, then obviously it came down to performance as well. Obviously, I'm not going to be like in everyone's like top 4 list if I'm playing like shit every event. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, like obviously you grow with how big the esports grows as well. Especially with being like Infused as well, being in that like top 3 teams as well. People always talk about you as well.
Yeah, and that's what you were. You were in a kind of a top 3 team, and it was interesting to see the natural progression of it. Was there any was there any doubts in your mind? Obviously, the Infused thing went on for quite a while. You had mixed results, right? It would be like one event you were, oh my goodness, they're the best European team. The next event, you guys would like crash out top 16, and it was up and down quite a lot. The team chemistry for you guys was there as well. Like a lot of people were saying, your team does so well because you've been together for quite a while. The chemistry was good. What was that roller coaster like of just staying with these people that you don't know what you're getting each event?
To be fair, we were probably one of the most inconsistent teams on Black Ops 3. Like going from like EGL where we won it to then going to what was it, S1 in the CWL playoffs. We lost. We placed like top 6, lost to Splyce. When really we should have won, like in everyone else's like eyes and stuff like that. I don't know. It was a massive roller coaster. It's a shame it ended how it did. We'll probably come to that a bit later on.
We will definitely come to that in just a little bit.
But yeah, we went to a lot of events together. Probably went to like one too many events. I know it sounds like weird saying that, but obviously we'll come to that as well. Yeah, it was a roller coaster, if you can say that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the end of this roller coaster. Then you've mentioned it a few times. Let's talk about it. I think you're talking a little bit about burnout, but obviously the big kind of knife in the gut, I suppose, for you has got to be champs. There were 3 prime European teams in Europe at the time: Splyce, Millennium, and Infused. Right? Now, there was this kind of weird thing going on where you guys really struggled to beat Millennium constantly. But we thought you might be able to beat Splyce. We thought, could Splyce beat Millennium? How does this Trinity work? Unfortunately, we actually never got an answer to that question. But for you guys being one of the top 3 and a potential 1 or 2 or 3 in Europe, going into XP, high hopes going into that tournament. I think we all know how it ended. It was not a good end. It was. You're right. It was a terrible ending for the Infused run from what was a good era of European Call of Duty. What happened, man? Like it was one of the biggest tournaments of the year. You were one of the favourites from Europe to go far. You were, like I said, you would easily put you on level with Splyce, and they come second. You come what, top 16? I think it was. Yeah.
Like I said earlier, one too many events. I feel like us going to Orlando probably, I want to say like killed us off, but it probably hurt us in a sense, like practice wise. Like a majority of I think it was like half of us didn't want to go and half of us did want to go. I feel like we'd have got better practice at home instead of like in a tournament environment. Like we had things to work on instead of going to a tournament to try and win. We weren't trying to learn, we were trying to win. Yeah. Instead where we could try and learn. I don't know if anyone else in my old team agrees with me on that one. I'm talking about Orlando. Going to that event. I don't feel like it was a needed event to go to. And then when we hit champs, obviously I felt like we had a pretty decent group. Like looked like we could get out of it. And then we lost to TK. Do we have another? We had TK, Lethal, and Tainted Minds.
Yeah, I mean, this was my big issue with it, right? This was my entire issue with the way that this went down for you. You should have done better. It should have been better. There was very little reason in my mind that it wasn't better. I don't really know. Like, obviously, you probably have your own thoughts about it and how you could have made it go differently. How much do you think about that? Because I know pro players think about it a lot, right? It's one of these things, like, you can say after an event, pro players will be dwelling on stuff for months to come, and you'll talk about it for years. But for you, like, there was so much expectation behind you. You'd done well at NA events. You'd done well at all these things, and it just kind of went puff.
You want me to be honest with you? I've kind of forgot about it.
Well, okay, yeah, you be honest.
I'm not gonna sit there and dwell on a bad event.
Yeah.
Like, it's like
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've done a lot of dwelling on it since you moved on.
Like after, obviously, like I'm sitting there watching Splyce come second. I just feel like they were a good team. They deserved it, but like I felt like I just didn't want to be there. Like, one thing like you gotta know about me is once I lose in Call of Duty, like I just don't watch Call of Duty. Like, if I lose an event, I don't watch the rest of that event. I go in my hotel room. I'll probably sit there and mope about until I fly home, or go home on a train. Like, I don't watch Call of Duty.
I think that's understandable. I think what people don't get about some pro players sometimes is that it is hard. Here's a theory I've always had, and you can kind of weigh in on this, right? Is I've always said you can tell when a player is going to retire or is close to retirement when they stop caring that much about losing. Every pro player I've known who's still hungry for the top and is still going to do well the next event takes that loss so hard. Like, every single time, I've seen players cry after events because they put so much work into it. It's your job, it's your passion, it's that competitive streak that drives you onwards. And obviously, then you've got to dive back into it. You've got to digest and figure out what went wrong and try to fix it.
I agree with you. If someone doesn't care about winning or losing, then like I feel like their like mentality is just done.
Yeah.
Like their career is done. Obviously, like you can be happy like after like a week or so. But like at an event, if you're not upset with losing or annoyed at losing, then like there's been an event where I think it was Vegas with my Orbit team, like we finished like top 36, and that was probably like the downfall of our team as well, like the start of it, like because it really fucked us over for like pro points and that.
Yeah. Well, I think let's talk about it then. Let's talk about this Orbit, because obviously we've spoken a little bit about the breakup of Infuse. We spoke a little bit about what happened, and we've gone through XP. What came next, though, I thought was quite interesting, because this was a kind of a weird mismatch of team, right? It was actually Splyce that caused this, because they had, arguably, you know, they came second at XP, and they went, actually, we don't want to be with each other. We just don't want to be. Infuse, we knew we were going to break. Mill split. You obviously had to find where you were going. You were actually quite a hot prospect. People weren't expecting you maybe to stay with Urban and to join up with Raid and Joe. A lot of people were questioning whether that team was going to work, and you know, the very first event, you guys did work. All right, you won it, right? And you know, the Orbit team won the first event. We raided Joe, Urban, and you. Didn't stay that way.
It was like 2 events before that. It was like we had PSX. I wouldn't really class that as an event.
Okay. No, it was kind of an invitational, right?
Yeah, that was just like to see how it was gonna run, and obviously everything's changed from then.
Yeah.
Like, Vegas was right after that, if I'm right.
Vegas wasn't long after it. It was enough time after it that it was kind of a different way people were playing the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was like the game changed like drastically after PSX. So we go to PSX, place second, choke to phase. We go to Vegas, place top 36, and lose to a guy called Human Jesus. And then that's what I was talking about, like about the mentality of players and the being annoyed and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I went like 0-7 last map against Clinky Poo and that, which kicked us out of the tournament.
Yeah.
And whilst I was packing away my stuff, like being annoyed at myself, I turned around to like go talk to my team about it, and they've already gone out the venue.
That must have stung a little bit.
And I was like, have I been dropped? Like, I was just sitting there going, I must be missing something here. There's a team talk going on. I'm dropped or something.
Which is still, being perfectly honest here with you, right? Because I don't, you know me, I don't tend to hype players up if I don't want to. You were still quite a hot prospect at that time, in terms of where you were kind of rated among the community. Obviously, we know like good and bad events will vary a player's kind of worth over a while. Orbit, you know, they were, first of all, start, it was like, wow, this new team, is this going to be another great squad moving forward? Your stock, and it's not personal, it's your stock and the team stock started to rapidly drop after that point. You know, successive losses.
I mean, if you want to, like, if you want to go back before the Orbit team even happened,
yeah,
after champs, we had, like, my Infused team didn't talk for like a month or something like that.
wow, okay.
Like, everyone knew what was happening in the team, and then everyone just wanted to get something sorted. Obviously, I had a fair few offers from a lot of teams, but me being like with Dave, and like at the start of this interview I said people like put in a good word for me.
Yeah.
It was Dave that put in a good word for me. So like obviously I was teaming with Dave for a year. I felt like me and him were a duo.
Well,
in a sense,
people
like,
would quite like to see you together again at some point with the way Dave's playing right now, right?
It's how it was. I had a few offers from people. I was like, no, I'm gonna stick with Dave, even though like you could say Dave didn't perform the best at champs.
Yeah.
I still thought he was one of the best players in the game. And moving on to the next game, I knew he was going to be good regardless. Like, you don't, if you're at the top in one game, you're going to be at the top in the next game.
Yeah.
That's where I see it. So me and Dave go on this journey of LF2 for a while, and then we decide to we'll go out the ordinary and pick up 2 players that just people won't expect us to pick up.
Yeah.
And we started off to go with Watson and Nelson. Not many people know this, to be fair, but obviously, like, doesn't matter.
I heard rumors of it because it was all a bit all over the place in that time, right? It was everybody was kind of trying to feel out. It was one of the genuine roster mains. You don't get a lot of them anymore. There was a genuine roster main where everybody was kind of feeling each other out.
Yeah, I guess so. Going into the next game, we obviously like no one knows how anyone's going to be the best or not. So we went off the old game. I thought Watson was a decent player on the old game, and like his mentality could be better, and I thought like if he teamed with me and Dave, then it would be like a good mentality.
Yeah.
Nelson was obviously a good player on the old on Black Ops 3. I thought he was the best player in Hyper Games. So
yeah,
thought,
I agree with that. Yeah.
We thought we would go with them, and then the whole Splyce thing happened, which caused like I was gonna stick with Watson and Nelson anyway, because obviously I didn't want to screw them over. Obviously, like, they were looking for teams and stuff as well, so it was like it would be like a really bad thing to just put them out in the open.
Oh yeah, I get that. Like, it's one of these things you hear it constantly from players, right? Is that because you have to work with these people in such a close kind of quarter, for so long. Like I had like people don't know I did a job with this where I was with a crew for like 12 hours a day.
You don't want to leave them out to dry.
Yeah, like, you kind of feel some loyalty for them, even though it may always not be the best decision. And
we weren't even properly teaming, but I just didn't want to leave them out to dry.
Yeah,
but
yeah, fans will have their own opinion, like on that kind of thing.
So I was at a wedding.
Okay.
Got royally mashed over, and then
are we on the same story? Is this about to be something?
Yeah,
horrific?
It's the same story. Got royally mashed over. Wake up in the morning, I get a message from Dave, and then he rings me. And then it's Reese and Joe wanted to join the team, and then obviously like I didn't want to leave them out to dry, so I was a bit skeptical. And then I was like, well, I just thought to myself, you can't really say no to arguably the 2 best players that played at champs, like in the team. Like Bance and Josh played really well as well, but Joe and Reese obviously
they were half that second XP. I know what you're saying.
Contributed to the second, so
yeah.
We were like, can't really say no to it, so we team with them, and the ups and downs started from there, really.
They certainly did. All right, let's go into these ups and downs. Now, again, what we said before, just a little while ago, Orbit, great first tournament, although it was a bit shaky at some point against the Splyce team. You did win that first one. We come out and you're like, okay, maybe this Orbit team is the real deal. What happened next in terms of, like, you already said, but from the way I saw it from the outside, Zer0, was it looked like Gfinity may have been a fluke. Honestly, it looked like that way. Like, because it was so early on, the game had changed, or the meta had changed, or people had just got better, and you guys were suddenly struggling against teams everybody thought you should have in the bag.
I felt like it was the same as our Infused team. We won the first event in that game, and then just went like had the ups and downs. Gfinity was a real like I don't really want to call it a fluke, but it was more like close. Like we didn't blow anyone out.
Yeah.
Like
there was a few.
Yeah, I think every game we played went to game 5, like in the winners.
Yeah, because that was when we were talking about like Elevate had a really close game against several people as well.
Yeah. So we wouldn't. We played well in our respawns. Like, I personally feel like I had a really good event in the respawns. Reese clutched up in the S&Ds, as well as Dave and Joe played really well in some S&Ds against everyone. I felt like I turned up in the respawns, but my S&D let me down that event. So yeah, shout out to Reese and that for that.
Yeah, you said this, right? This is the thing, like everybody, you said this to me at several times at events, and people don't get to see this side of you, Zer0. Is that you're very open when you just think you've done really badly. Like you're a very hard person to please in terms of your play. So like, if you have a really good map, you're like, yeah, I'm cooking. I'm absolutely cooking. There isn't, for me, there's no grey area with you. It's either I'm the greatest or I'm the worst.
I'm either ant wheeling or I'm just trash. But I guess that's a good thing in a way, like, because then you're not going into I don't know, you're not blowing your own trumpet in a sense. Like, if you're going off, people know you're going off.
Yeah.
And then you can like hype yourself up about it. But if you're playing bad, like, you can't say you're playing good when you're playing bad.
Yeah, I think being realistic of your own ability.
You have to come to terms with when you're actually playing bad.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, and this is something that you don't get from a lot of pro players, and you probably haven't realised yourself, Zer0, is that what you just said there isn't always true with some players. There's a lot of players making excuses. I've never really known you to make many excuses. You're always just kind of like, yeah, I just played bad. I just played bad. And as rare as it is, that just doesn't actually happen that often. Most of the time, the player's like, oh, this happened or whatever. You actually just go, no, I was trash. No, I was actually trash. I was very bad in that series, and that's it. And then you'll walk off, and you'll deal with the loss and carry on.
I've used some excuses before. Well, they're like valid
I'm not
excuses.
saying you're a saint.
Yeah, I've had some excuses before where there's been some valid excuses, don't get me wrong. But yeah, don't make an excuse like in a team, if you make a bad play, say you've made a bad play.
Yeah.
Like, don't try and argue your point. I've argued my point before and it's just got me nowhere. Like, it was what was it, S1 playoffs, I made a bad play. Ben called me out. I tried arguing about it. I said sorry for it because I was in the wrong.
Yeah.
Like, even though I had a good map, that one play screwed us over.
Okay. All right. Like, I think that's kind of a healthy way to kind of look at it.
The way I see it, if you have a really good game, let's say you're double positive in a hard point. You're having a stellar performance. You're putting on a show.
I mean, that's me every game. So go on. I'm with you.
Let's put you in a situation. Yeah, Bryce is having a 40-10 game, stellar performance.
Okay.
And then he makes the worst play in history to lose his team spawns or something like that. Like,
this second bit, I'm definitely there with you. In this second bit, that happens frequently.
It's not going to happen all the time, but like, I'm just using that as an example. You've made a bad play, you've lost your team in the game as well as keeping them in it, but you've lost them the game as well. That's what I mean by like admitting to your faults, basically. Like,
well, I think that's healthy, right? To kind of push forward and get better. I've said before, I think some of the best teams are not the teams that don't make any mistakes. It's the teams that just don't frequently make the same mistakes.
Once you've made the mistake, you've learned.
Yeah.
But it's coming to the terms that you're admitting to the mistake. And that's what some teams don't do. They'll try and argue a point where, like, even if they're wrong and they know they're wrong, they'll try and argue the point just because they know they've messed up, which isn't going to work because then you're not learning as a team.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, this actually moves us on quite nicely, Zer0, to your current squad. The Splyce transfer that came about because of Josh. Now, how was it to leave Orbit? Obviously, that team's kind of massively changed. Oh, it's now Red Reserve. People remember that as well. Was it a difficult decision to leave Splyce? Sorry, Orbit/Red for Splyce, or was this kind of like, look, I just want to be with these 3 players? It was kind of a big call up, right?
It was a big call up, but it was easy decision. If you look at our like performances and stuff, it was a decision that anyone would have took.
Yeah, I think so.
In the team, anyone would have took that if they had the opportunity. It was after ESWC. We had a pretty poor performance, to be fair. We came close against Optic, but I feel like that's the only thing we done, like, that you could say was special. That's the way it's been for me, by the way. If anyone doesn't know, always last map against Optic. I've never beat Optic. I've always come last map against Optic.
Hey,
so,
to
yeah.
be fair, there aren't that many players who have.
Mate, I just can't beat them. I'm hoping it changes soon, but I'm just last map material against them. But yeah.
Well, we might see it in playoffs. So.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Don't get me wrong, I'm cooking recently.
Speaking of this, all right. So you joined the Splyce squad, right? It was a move that a lot of us were talking about. You know, this probably should happen. You were still a great prospect, even though Red Reserve or /Orbit took a little bit of a dive in the last few months. You're now teaming with Bance, one of the biggest players to come up from last year, a player that everybody wanted to see you with. Mad Cat, who's been known as the best players in Europe for like the last 4 years, and Zer0, who's just a phenom in himself. What's it like? I mean, you know these guys through 8s and being on enemy teams, and you've played them, but now you're stepping in as their teammate. How did that feel? What was it like? What was the first kind of team discussion like? You know, what was that world?
Honestly, like, it's the same as any other team. Like, you don't want to make it out like you're like the new player. Like, you wanna try and mold in with the team and be a team.
Were they welcoming?
Come on now. I mean, Mad Cat doesn't rate anyone anyway other than anyone on his team. So coming into that team, I'll be like, oh, like in H you'd have a troll around with him and stuff like that. But I respect it.
Was it like a level of respect then? Like Mad Cat has now accepted me. This is great. Mad Cat.
I still don't know if he respects me or accepts me at all. Really.
Insight into the mind of Mad Cat.
Yeah, honestly it was good. Obviously, they were probably the best team in Europe, regardless of what anything happened. Coming in, taking Josh's spot, like I felt like I gave more, regardless of the I-60. Like
we'll get to that. We will get to that.
I don't even want to get to that.
We're getting to that. That's like so much to talk about there.
All right. Well, don't expect. You're gonna expect some valid excuses from that event.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. I know there's we've talked about it before, but we'll get to that. I just want to kind of know right now is like the feeling within Splyce. I think it's a great thing. Like I said, like you're playing with Zer0. Zer0's famously, just a lot of people don't really know Zer0's personality because he just doesn't do anything on camera. He rarely tweets. He's a hard guy. But Bance is always the one in camera, or you.
One thing you gotta understand is like, I feel like Zer0 is like quiet until you know him.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes.
He's like, he's honestly one of the funniest people I know. Just like, just some of the things he says and some of the things he does. Like, honestly, like people think he's like boring because he doesn't tweet. He's like the most non-boring person ever. Like at an event, like it seems like full of laughs and stuff like that. The vibes are good, which is the main thing in a team.
Yeah.
Every team I've been on, to be fair, the vibes have been decent. Obviously my Orbit team, like that just doesn't work just because it didn't work. Like none of us actually hated each other or anything like that. It just I
heard it broke down a little bit towards the end.
Yeah,
it was towards the end of it broke down a little bit, but other than that, it was good.
Yeah, it's just some teams have an expiration date. My Infuse
yours come around really quickly in that team. They had a very short expiration date.
Yeah,
they were milk.
My Infuse one probably like people thought it would be a bit sooner. Maybe it should have been sooner. I'm not too sure.
I don't know. I like that team. A question for me in that team is: would you guys do well outside of it? Some of you have. Some of you have done less well. But no, I think for me the cool thing to see you in Splyce was this is a great team with the main attribute is that there doesn't seem to be a weakness anywhere. There doesn't seem to be any of those, or this guy's maybe not as good as the rest of us. Every single one of you is one of those players that goes, oh my goodness, they're amazing. Do you ever feel like you have to live up to that a little bit?
Nah, like people think way too much into it. Like, oh, you're living up to expectation. Like, then you just put in your own putting pressure on yourself. Like, I was good before I joined the team, so why am I going to change anything up whilst I'm in the team?
Well, I mean, you've been doing very well in that team, so I suppose that makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, just especially on this game, it's just do your own thing. The game is average.
Yeah.
I won't obviously it's not the best game for esports. But the support's there.
The support this year has been fantastic. There are so many good things that they've done this year, which for me just says they are continuously making these great steps forward.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the benefit of that.
But yeah, this team obviously, I still feel like is the best team in Europe. I still think people can't argue that at all.
I think there's a conversation around it at the very least.
I guess but...
probably because of the next thing we're moving on to.
Yeah, but even though the next thing I'm moving on to, I still don't think people will see that and then they can judge it if they want. But obviously I'm going to feel that. But I still feel like most people class this as the best.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, let's move on to that small blip on that conversation then. I-60. Now, I-60 started off, you were the favourites coming in. You were looking very good for the majority of the tournament. I mean, you beat Fnatic like I haven't seen Fnatic really been beaten before. I think it was round 1 of the winners bracket. And you actually demolished them. It was a very one-sided game. 3-0, you smashed on the hard point. I think the S&D was a little bit, I think it was 6-3. And then the uplink you guys took off. Then you did it to... Who else did you play that was really good? I think you may have played Elevate. Again, another really easy game for you guys. Bearing in mind that obviously Elevate were maybe 6th, but Fnatic were maybe 4th around that time with kind of the rankings. And it was like, how can they be stopped, right? Red Reserve have started to have a bad tournament. Mill were looking 50-50. Turns out it was Epsilon. Now, you beat them in the winners bracket final 3-2. But the games you won were clearer wins than the games you lost in that, if I remember correctly. And then the final happened. Now, it's not that I didn't think Epsilon could at least beat you or take you the distance. The manner of which it happened definitely surprised me. It was definitely something that I wouldn't have expected over 6 maps, Zer0. Now, I know you said there's no real excuses there, but can you at least give us some sort of insight into maybe what happened for the people who at least don't understand? Because I'll be honest with you, I still don't fully understand it myself. I don't know whether you would, maybe there was a million tiny aspects or Epsilon just really revved it up. It's one of these big questions. I know it's going to be difficult to answer, but if you could try to do your best.
All right, so maybe we probably went into it thinking we were going to win regardless. We didn't warm up before we played. And that's like being 2.5 hours away. Like, we have to wait for the games to be done.
Yeah.
And then we had to play. We didn't warm up at all. Another big factor in that, anyone will agree with me, anyone that played on main stage or anyone that played, the Cronuses were laggy. I don't know if it was the Cronuses or the monitors or whatnot. Something didn't feel right that event. Not trying to blame it on why we lost both best of 5s, but there was a map where Dill couldn't shoot straight, and that was one we lost in the second best of 5.
That's a good point. That may have been the worst performance I've ever seen Madcap put in across a series.
And it wasn't him. That wasn't his fault. There was times on stream where, I even watched it back where he was pre-aiming something, had a clear gunfight win, and his aim's just going all over the place, and that's just not Madcap.
No, I can understand that.
When have you ever seen Madcap throw a windy in 5 years?
Exactly. I think that's what was one of the biggest surprises for me.
I will never say that's the reason why we lost.
Yeah.
But it plays a big factor in what a map win can do to another team.
Yeah. Well, it must have been a shock for you, right? Because it wasn't just, we lost or 3-1 or whatever. Because it was 2 best of 5s. I saw you guys outside, and you look like. I'll be honest with you, the team that I saw out there looked quite stressed. After the first 3-0. It was one of these ones like, oh, we got to try and regain and put our heads back in the right place.
I feel like it was more like
I mean, don't get me wrong, the hard points were super close from what I remember. I think that may have been the issue.
Like the worst bit about it is like people look at that event and will be like, oh, they'll only look at the series score. They won't look at the actual like game scores.
Yeah, the hard points were like 4 points each or something.
We didn't get destroyed at all.
No, but again, it's one of those ones like you said. You are looking at the map score and you're going, it's 6-0, right? It's kind of crazy. Do you think it was the hard points thing? Because if I'm remembering back that tournament, I'm sitting there and going, the first hard point couldn't have been more than 15 points. I know one of them was like 4 points or something stupid. Is that kind of just? Do you think that was maybe a momentum breaker, or
one hard point was 4 points, one hard point was 2 points?
Oh, yeah, even closer than I remember it then. Even more ridiculously close. Do you think that kind of just put you guys in a little bit of a tailspin? Because you go into that, you lose the S&D, you're like, oh my goodness, we're down 2-0. It's one of those ones that's just like, it's very difficult to kind of regain in those scenarios. I know players can do it, and we've seen it multiple times, but it's never easy sitting in that seat.
Some people will just see it as like, oh, they're just playing COD, but like, people like do this like, this is people's jobs.
Yeah.
And like, it's the same as if you do anything else. Like, if you're passionate about something else, if something doesn't go your way, you're obviously going to be annoyed about it or upset about it. But in a situation where you lose one best of 5 and you got another one to play, like obviously you got to regain, but you don't let it get to you where you just flop the next series. And we didn't.
Well, no, that hard point came in a different way. It may set a whole different tone for the series. I think another thing, this is not me making excuses for you, by the way, because I don't want to do that. I think something people maybe also don't really understand, at least from my point of view, is how long days can be. And they say, oh, you're just playing games. I don't believe that, because people say, oh, you're just casting, you're just hosting. And I know the mental fatigue that comes with a long day like that, and the focus it takes. For you guys, it's even more, right?
You gotta think, like, if we're not playing, we're sitting down.
Yeah.
When you're sitting down, you get tired.
Slumping.
Yeah, you're just slumped. I was eating Subways. I was cranked. But yeah, like obviously there's things that we could have done. There's things that were out of our hands. Like that event's past me. I don't even care about it. Like I got bigger fish to fry.
All right. Well, let's move on then. Because unfortunately, we're not going to move from a bad point to a good point. We're going back to another bad point, and it was actually your first week in the CWL. Now, you looked really good. Really, really good. Right up until Sunday again. Was this Envy just cooking? Like, because this is the problem. It looked like another, like, what is going on? Is this something just moving forward? I know you were very angry on Twitter, Zer0, about people calling out the composure of your squad. And I said I didn't think it was composure. I think it was just maybe it's the way that group was going to be tight anyway. It's envious, right? They're a good squad.
I just get annoyed with people thinking they know things.
I know
like, you
everything.
don't know. Yeah, like, maybe you, but no one else does.
I like that. I might put that as just, I might just keep that as a separate video clip for me.
Lord Bryce knows all, but no. The Sunday, went in there, we had a close series against Mind Freak. Honestly, our uplink's been lacking recently.
Which is a surprise, if you don't mind me interrupting, because Zer0 seems to have those ones on lock.
It's been a roller coaster for us in the uplink department, let's say. I feel like we've screwed ourselves over as a team by playing differently because we play money 8s and stuff like that, and then we get bad tendencies. Obviously, we went from Birmingham straight to the CWL.
Oh, it was literally the following Monday morning as well, wasn't it? You get on a flight after that.
So us starting off 4-0 was like really good, but then like we had a couple. Did we have a close game? I can't remember. I feel like we stomped everyone.
You did very well. You did so well in the first 2 days. I remember that there was a lot of hype around you taking this, and people were looking forward to the next day, which is why I think everyone again it's the same stories. Everyone was so surprised that Mind Freak gave you a close game, and then Envy took you down.
Honestly, Mind Freak were like, I'd rank them high. in the team rankings now after playing them. Like they're not just a little pushover team like everyone thinks they are. Like yeah, they're Australian, but they ain't a pushover team. No one knows how they play.
Yeah.
It's one of them ones. So when we played them, it was like it was hard. Like I said earlier, like admit to when you made a bad play, and that was a bad play I made against them. It was like 2-4-6 to 2-4-6.
Yeah.
Or something like that. It was coming really close, and I made a stupid play. I said I was watching flank when I didn't need to watch flank, and then they flooded the hill, and then we lost. Like that's a bad play. I argued my point, and then realized it was a really bad play.
Okay.
So
okay, that was kind of the point we were talking about there. Yeah.
Yeah. Admit when you make a bad play, and then it come to the Envy game, and then, like I said, at I-60 we didn't warm up for the final, and we didn't warm up before we played the Envy game. It's just we felt like we could cruise it. Obviously, it was a bad mistake. I feel like we all know that now, going into it.
Do you think it's? I'm going to throw this. I'm going to throw this at you because I feel like especially in these, like what I like to do is I do like to kind of call people on stuff. Overconfidence, maybe for both of those. That's what it sounds like from an outsider's point of view. Is it?
I don't think it's overconfidence. I just feel like it's more relaxed, if you know what I mean. I wouldn't say overconfident, the word. Relaxed definitely is. Like, we felt relaxed going into the series. And then, like, Envy just wanted it more, in my opinion.
Okay.
And they showed it, like, and do people think it was no composure? Like, it was a series. It was a close series. Like, we didn't choke. We didn't lose. We didn't get slapped about. It was a close series. It was what was it? What was the hard point score? It was a close hard point.
Yeah.
It was like 30 points in hard point. It was a 6-5 in S&D on a map we'd never played.
Wasn't the uplink I don't think was close. Is it the uplink you guys just went, oh, okay.
And that's coming down to the point I made earlier. Our uplink isn't as good as it used to be, and that's what we're trying to work on now. And we know what we need to work on, and we're gonna work on it because we're gonna show everyone that we're the best team.
Okay, well, I think that's kind of a cool thing to go through. I wasn't gonna ask many more questions, but actually you've got me something really interesting in something. And I don't want you to give away anything at this point, all right? So you can quite happily say just be generic, or we can move on. How do you work on an error? What is the kind of the method for you guys to go? Obviously, we're bad at uplink. Is it just you scrim a lot of uplink? Do you analyze some of the games you've played and made those mistakes? Do you, I don't know, maybe go and watch a team that is good at uplink? Go right, let's steal that.
If you want me to be honest with you, probably like if you just jump into it.
Yeah.
And just practice it. I don't feel like you're going to get much better. Like, learn the mistakes, watch your own VODs back, learn the mistakes you made, and then work on them, and then work on just uplink. But uplink was our worst game mode. It's gradually getting better. I'm not saying it's like back to where it was.
You got a bit of time for playoffs, not that much time.
Yeah, like
you got a bit of time.
Obviously, the practice in Europe right now is very, very, very minuscule, with teams being out in America, teams just coming back from America. So yeah, it's getting hard to scrim it properly. But yeah,
well, that's a problem in itself, right? Is that people go, oh, it doesn't matter when you play a bit of the lower level teams, and people don't tend to realise that it's not good practice, because if you're constantly just beating bad teams, you're not learning anything and you're not fixing problems.
Well, if you play like not a league team, let's say, or just a below team, then you don't know whether the mistakes that you made are getting better, or the team that you're playing is just worse.
Yeah. Well, we actually saw that last year. I think it was the Australians, actually. I think it was Mindfreak. Me and Teet were watching one of the games, and we said some of the things they were doing were clearly evidence of them not having the right competition to play, because they were making moves that, because they expected to win the gunfight, didn't expect the enemy team to punish their mistakes, they were moving forward and they were doing all kinds of weird. I think it was breach, uplink, that me and Teep just went, this is everything they just did there was wrong for this reason. But no, I mean, that's been great. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you from there. Now, obviously, we can see you at playoffs. At the time of this, because we don't know exactly what's happening in week 3 of the CWO at the moment, you are the only team going to playoffs from Europe. Are you guys excited for that? You know, it's kind of a big thing. Kind of, you're already in season 2. You guys are nicely upon that path to the World Championship as well. You feeling good?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I-60, we don't like. Obviously, at the time, it was like, I wouldn't say heartbreaking because it wasn't like that, but it was definitely like a kick in the ass. And then like to forget about it is the best thing to do. Like don't think about that loss every time you're playing, or like when you're practicing or something like that. Just work on the bigger things. Like I-60, that was a little event this year. We got S1 to win. We've got Anaheim. We've got a bunch of other events. We've got S2. That was a 50k event, and season 1 that is 50k each event.
Yeah.
That is the money we're talking right now.
I was gonna say hold little L's to gain big W's, but that would probably just be rubbing salt in the wound. Because that's basically what Josh that's basically what Josh is saying.
But that would be the saying if you were to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, bigger fish to fry, more events to win, more money on the line. This is where every team has to turn up. Put these scrims to use in game. Put the mistakes you've learned into use to win the bigger events, because that's where people will see. That's where people will rank you.
Yeah.
Like if Epsi beat us at I-60 and then they place last at COD Champs.
That's what people remember. That's what people remember.
Yeah. Do people still think they're going to be better than us? Yeah. Like I'm not saying they're bad. I rank them like, obviously they beat us, so I rank them behind us because obviously I can't be biased. I've got to be biased to myself. Like I don't think any team's better than us. But yeah, like I said, we got bigger events to win than to worry about I-60.
All right, awesome. Well, this is the time where I don't want to hold you any longer. I know you kind of moved your girlfriend out of this for this when you're kind of relaxing with her, and I appreciate you coming on. Any shout outs for or anything you want to kind of say to wrap this up?
It's fine, bro. She's taken over Los Santos. But shout outs, I guess the squad, obviously, for putting up with me, I guess. Even though
I'm sure they're more than happy.
It's a lovely thing. Come on now. But yeah, the squad, and obviously Splyce, and I guess the supporters really. Obviously, people think I'm a hot prospect according to you, so
hey,
yeah, shout out to them.
What were you, 4th, 3rd in my EU rankings?
Well, I should be first, like. But...
Well, we'll find out. I'll do another one very soon.
No. We won't do. Well, you'll have to make it actually, no, don't make it public because I haven't got the most Twitter followers.
All right. Speaking of that, if you want to keep up with Zer0, you can do. All his social media will be in the description. You'll see him at Season 1 finals. You'll see him at all the tournaments that come up. If you're a Splyce fan, I'm sure you already know this guy. But thank you so much, Trey, for coming on and doing this. I'm sure we'll catch up with you in about 6 months or so, see what's happened from there. But yes, it's been another episode of Top Flight Talk. We'll see you soon.